Real questions, real answers for real life. Come on in and pull up a chair. You're at 1850 Main Street with Michael Del Giorno and David Zanotti.
Is an empowered voter more likely to be a participating voter? Rob Walgate of iVoters.com joined us again today.
So you got a favorite Steve Jobs quote that you always are throwing around. How does it go?
If you want to make people happy, don't be a leader. Sell ice cream.
If you want to make people happy, sell ice cream.
Have you ever been mad at someone that sold you ice cream? I mean,
only one time, but I was self-serve on my part, and I went to a store recently. I bought some great ice cream from a great company with a great brand, and I took it to some folks and said, "You're going to love this ice cream," and I was not paying close enough attention that the grocery store let this ice cream thaw and refreeze. And usually you can tell it's a little crusty on the outside. Don't buy those ones because this one, they got me, and it was terrible because it
consumer error.
Bad product, but I should have known better.
Me and RJ had a recent road trip, and there was consumer error getting snacks at the gas station. He was all pumped up, and we were at a jerky outlet buying jerky. Of course, if you're going to be in the car, you need plenty of snacks. Dave Zanotti taught me that when I started working at the American Policy Roundtable years ago. Got to have good snacks, and he bought jerky. We get in the car, and we're 2 miles down the road. He opens it, and he looks, and he grabbed the wrong one.
Consumer error. Hey, speaking of errors, it would have been smart for me to introduce Rob Walgate as filling in with us again this week from iVoters.com. And we've been asking Rob to participate at 1850 Main Street. Michael and I have been doing so because there's so much vital information. And the people that are listening to 1850 care so much about the electoral process that we're trying to get them familiar with this tool, iVoters.com, so they can use it to help other people. Because people that care a lot about the country are always interested in how can I help people get registered to vote? How can I help them express their feelings and their beliefs in the electoral process? And how can I get them information that they'll be able to look at the candidates and then decide responsibly for themselves? A lot of people also are concerned about how I can get organizations, my company, schools, libraries, social groups, and churches involved in voter information that's nonpartisan. So that whether we're talking about state representatives or state senators or members of Congress in the House and the Senate or the White House, that we can send them to a source where the information is presented in such a way that both sides get their opportunity to get their message out. So people who make decisions, they say, well, the country's so divided between R's and D's, that doesn't matter anymore. Okay, Rob, is that true? Is the country so divided between R's and D's that getting the facts is just a joke? It doesn't work anymore?
No, not at all. The interesting thing is that the Republicans and Democrats, neither one share like their member list as far as the actual numbers of people that want to be associated with them. Because if they did, it would be substantially low. If you look at the voter rolls in states where you have to declare R or D, you'll find that the majority of people are independents or non-aligned in many, many instances. They're fed up with the parties.
Therefore, an organization like the American Policy Roundtable, a nonprofit that's not trying to steer the outcome of an election or get paid to try to play some role for some candidate or party or regime, providing a neutral site like iVoters.com where you can get both sides is something that lots of people appreciate. You've been doing this forever, and you find people all over the country that say thank you, right?
Well, yeah, they're very thankful because they're sick of 30-second commercials. They're sick of hearing what's said about each candidate, and they just want to get to the truth. So we provide them with that opportunity. They enter their address, they enter their zip code, up pops the candidates that are running in their area for state rep all the way to the White House. We provide them a resource to take a look at their website, take a look at their social media profile, take a deep dive on each candidate. It takes a little bit of work, but I mean, for those listening, my question is, what do you spend more time with? If you're in a fantasy football league, do you study for your fantasy football draft more than you study before you go vote?
Hey, I have to admit that if it's a certain time of year, I might be watching more Major League Wiffle Ball than I will be watching Fox News. And that's an insider joke, and I can tell you this because Rob's got a family member, his son, who is a high school student who actually plays in the Major League Wiffle Ball world, and he has awakened thousands of young people around the country to what a blast it is to watch people play Major League Wiffle Ball. All right, so I could be watching more Major League Wiffle Ball than Fox News or CNN or any of that stuff. I don't care if the election or not. If those boys are playing, I'm watching. All right, so it helps to have a tool that you can have somebody else do your homework for you, and that's what iVoters.com does.
And it allows us to then talk to our neighbors about it, because how many times do we find ourselves in conversations? But this allows us to give them a tool that they can do research on their own, or let them know what you found out doing your research, not giving them the talking points from each cable news network from the night before. No one wants those regurgitated, because listen, they all have an angle and have a slant. We want people to do their own research so they can make a decision for themselves. And we've always said we feel the Republic operates at its best when we have an educated
So here's
electorate.
a new tagline. We do the homework for you. Fast, free, and independent. iVoters.com. Wow, that worked really good.
Sounds great to me. I mean, and here's the thing. If you ask the political parties about us and the work that we do, they're both going to throw their hands in the air and be frustrated with us because we won't get in line and march in the parade. We refuse to do that.
We're more interested in the people that are doing the voting than we are pushing candidates. So we don't do any of that stuff. But we also cover ballot issues. Ballot issues in all 50 states. And
Yes.
Ballot issues, okay, here's a cynical question. And again, Rob and I work together at the American Policy Roundtable. We bring Rob in on 1850 Main Street because iVoters is just such a great site, and the research is there. This has been going on for 44 years. Ballot issues used to be, first off, not every state can have a ballot issue. Not every state has access. For example, Pennsylvania can't do a ballot issue, right?
Only if it comes from the
Right.
legislative body. Can't do it. Not
So
from
the people
not
in
from the
Arizona,
people.
for example, can bring an issue to the ballot. The people in Florida can bring an issue to a ballot. And in both instances, they're doing that this time around. One of the things I've seen change about ballot issues over the years is that now they're political weapons. Used to be a bunch of people got together, raised the money, went out and did the hard work and hired signature gatherers. And by the way, if you think hiring signature gatherers makes this an easy process, you've clearly never done it or even come close to doing it. We have done this process. It doesn't matter whether you have paid signature collectors or you have volunteer signatures. This is a nightmare of work. And it doesn't happen very often, but it's happening more frequently now, where ballot issues are being used as political weapons, whereby parties can mobilize the electorate so that those people who are coming out will then vote for that party's candidates as well.
Yeah. And the goal at iVoters is when you enter your address and zip code, whatever state you're in, every voter in that state, what will pop up at the top of iVoters in the fall will be the ballot issues in your state. We'll look for the actual ballot language. We'll look for what it does. We'll look for people that are for it and against it and put the arguments up there. I'm not a fan of additional federal laws, but I'm believing that there should be maybe a federal law that would require all states to use something like iVoters.com to be a resource so citizens can get.
Wait a minute, that sounds like a communist idea. I thought the American Policy Roundtable was a free market independent organization. What are you doing, a federal law? What?
Yeah. No, I know. Like, I just want to be able to provide the info more clearly. I want to have the people to have access to the data. As frustrating as it is for me, I do this for a living, and sometimes I struggle finding the actual ballot language or constitutional language in some of these states. It's buried deep in legislation, and they make it difficult to find. And it's and that's what we do at iVoters. We want to put
so
it in
you
your
can
fingertips
read
and make
the
it
actual
easy.
words that are going to become your constitutional law. Yeah, I can understand your outrage. I feel the same way.
It just it shouldn't be this difficult. And that's the frustration, because what it does is if someone doesn't know about ivoters.com, which I hope you tell all your friends about it before they vote in the fall, but they may get frustrated and turn away because they don't know where to look for that language. It should be at your fingertips. Some states do a great job. Other states are awful at it.
For example, we've got a measure coming up in Florida on this the abortion question, and it's a single sentence. It's 34 words. It's a single sentence. None of the words in that particular ballot proposal are defined. They're placed in a sentence. They're going to be placed in the Constitution, and there are no definitions. Now, you can make an argument for the sake of law. You can make an argument in a courtroom over what do words mean with an awful lot of words. Like the question in regards to the issue of life, the question of viability. You put the word viability in a constitutional amendment, you don't define what viability is. How is that law going to be adjudicated or processed or applied? It's going to be applied by some judge somewhere who decides to invent the definition, because the people who put the amendment together were so irresponsible that they just wanted to get it into the law. They didn't care about the ramifications going down the road, or because they believed they could manipulate the answers in the courts. A lot of times people will look at ballot issues and not realize that if the ballot issue passes, they will lose their right to representation on this particular issue, no matter what it is. I always use the example of jaywalking because nobody seems to get offended. It's, with jaywalking, it's like if you want people to like you, talk about jaywalking or sell ice cream. Okay, so it's jaywalking is safe. So if I want to say no law shall ever be passed about jaywalking, well, what did I just do? I took away the legislature's ability to ever regulate the question of jaywalking. But what if I didn't define what jaywalking is? Most people who get a ticket for jaywalking honestly don't know what it is, or that they just did it. I mean, this isn't as simple as some of these people try to make it out to be.
And the last thing we want are judges coming into play, telling us what these words mean. We can define them for ourselves. We should do the heavy lifting, not wait around for people in black robes to tell us what everything stands for.
Thanks for stopping by at 1850 Main Street. We're glad you're here. Do you want to learn more about what's really going on behind the scenes in public policy? Tune in to the Public Square on over 200 radio stations coast to coast, or download the free Public Square mobile app from your app store. Just look for The Lamppost. Find out what America's talking about at thepublicsquare.com.
So what states do you think ballot issues could actually have a serious impact on all of the races, particularly national races?
Well, I think you're going to look at Florida. We know that Floridians will be voting on abortion and marijuana in the fall. So I think for sure there. New York has some of the most heinous language I've ever seen when it comes to the issue of life. The people in New York will be voting there on the abortion issue. Maryland, people will be voting on that. There's some that are still up in the air. Arizona, Arkansas, Missouri, Montana, and Nevada will be one people will be watching as well. Nevada is one where it can come from the people. As you mentioned earlier, Dave, there are different rules in different states on whether the people can gather signatures to put something on the ballot or it has to come from a legislative body.
So a big thing to watch is whether states that are considered swing states like Arizona and Nevada are going to have ballot issues that could actually end up changing turnout, changing funding coming into those states, empowering organizations to go out and push for their ballot initiative and basically piggyback with other agendas and issues so that they sort of form a team so that the candidates that they want also just happen to be coincidentally elected as well. And they're trying to use a ballot issue to swing the turnout.
Yes, and you'll see that candidates align themselves or don't align themselves with those respective ballot issues in each state. And what you'll see as well is it could have an impact down in state legislative bodies or in the U.S.
Florida,
House.
Arizona, Nevada are definitely states to watch because there's big things that can happen there. And then also You say, well, what difference does a New York amendment? The New York amendment's on abortion, right? The big one that's coming up on a constitutional proviso there.
Yes, they've had that language out for a year.
You say, well, New York's a pro-abortion state based upon representation. What difference does having a ballot issue isn't going to change anything? But remember, a couple of days ago, we started this conversation. We talked about House races in New York, that there are House races that are currently being held by Republicans in New York, that if there is an abortion amendment that changes the turnout in those 3 congressional district races, it could sweep 3 Republicans out of office. Now, my guess is you're not reading that in the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Associated Press or the Atlantic.
In the tidal wave of money that they will be spending to get these measures passed, we've seen firsthand, you've seen it in Ohio and other places, where they prey on people's emotions, their feelings, and quite frankly, they don't tell the truth in the TV commercials.
So that's why we try to do ivoters.com. And full disclosure, here at 1850 Main Street, you know how this all works. Michael Del Giorno, our dear friend and ally, works for iHeart. He's a radio host and a good friend and has been for many years. When we talk together in 1850, we're just talking about what we see and what we observe. 1850 Main Street is an organization, is a podcast. I'm allowed to use that word now. For years, I banned myself from using it. We're allowed to use the word podcast now.
Someday I'm going to release the list of banned words.
And so far, they're still holding up pretty good. But this podcast is a long format audio program where we bring the experts in behind the scenes to just basically talk over coffee and figure out what people aren't hearing and why it matters. And this whole conversation's about, like, if you take these last 3 days of conversations on 1850 Main Street, we've been talking about stuff that nobody puts on cable news because we're showing people where the private hallways are and the secret doors where the power brokers get together and play the game of electoral politics to control through the parties, the House, the Senate, the state legislatures, governor's races, and to stay in power. Now, the concept of America is that power is supposed to come from the people. And the electoral process is the way we're supposed to keep the scales balanced. So a site like ivoters.com doesn't come in and put the thumb on the scale for the Democrats or the thumb on the scale for the Republicans. We just tell people what's happening. We just let the candidates provide the information. We don't edit their information. They give you, then we go to all the sources that rate and rank that we can find left and right, put together a process, do all the homework for you. Then you can say, okay, I get it. I can see where this person's coming from. I can see where that person's coming from. Nobody needs to tell me who to vote for. I got it. I found out where they went to school. I found out what kind of jobs they've held. I found out where their money's coming from. I found out how they voted. I found out who's backing them. Now everybody's got the data. And it seems like an empowered voter is more likely to be a participating voter. And that's really the goal of iVoters. iVoters.com is to get people involved in the process. So does it work, Rob?
It works, and people are thankful for it. And people, when they use it, they realize that the responsibility is theirs. And I think what they start to see is, wow, I'm voting on all these people and all these things. I didn't know they stood for this, or I didn't know this about the person. I didn't know this about their family, all in positive ways, because the only thing you're going to see on the commercials are the bad things, the negatives. And many of those
good government's hard work. We know that. And I don't know about you, but I like to try to get away with as little hard work as necessary. And personal responsibility. We all have to have it. We know it. We know that's the way we got to do it. But a lot of us would rather watch other stuff on television. All right, it's not exactly the thing we look most forward to. Now, voting isn't as bad as a root canal in most people's minds, but the preparation and the work and all that stuff, it tends to be something we have taken way too long for granted. So rather than lecturing people about how we all need more responsibility, why not just provide a tool like ivoters.com that says, we'll do the homework for you. Here, you're allowed to cheat off of somebody else's notes and then make up your own mind. One thing you will know for sure is at least the answers that you're going to see on the piece of paper are as given in the most honest possible fashion. Rob, have you ever calculated how many hours it takes to do this by getting both sides as opposed to just shilling for one side or the other?
Well, it would be simple if it was just one side of the ballot. No, we do both sides because we think that you need to have the entire book. If you read half a book, do you really know the entire story? So we want everybody to have the entire story. We have an amazing team at the American Policy Roundtable that helps build iVoters.com and provides it as a free resource to all the listeners.
In this cynical age where we've all believed that everybody's on the take somewhere, I can vouch for Rob Walgate because we've been working together for years and the team at iVoters.com. Now, whether I vouch for him or not doesn't really matter. All right, I'm on their side. Here's the thing. Check the site out yourself, because what you'll find is it only exists to serve you. When you're done with it, there's nothing else to do. It's simply giving people access to information. It's sort of like everybody went to the library, everybody got the books. Now you get to go and get the Cliff Notes and look really smart and get your job done a lot easier because somebody else is wondering, why would they do that? Well, maybe it goes back to what you said in the beginning. Maybe America's best when we all know what's going on.
That's why we do what we do. iVoters.com. We're building the site now. We're gathering data and info. And some people say, well, we'll put it up early. I want to look at it. Well, here's the issue. Your ballot isn't finalized. We want to wait until the ballot's finalized so you can do your homework on the official ballot. If we start putting up candidates now, you've made a decision on who to vote for. That person may drop out or say, you know what, I don't want to be on the ballot. Or someone better may
But it's coming. And as the ballots are being finalized, you're moving state by state by state. Ballot issues the same way. So iVoters.com will be with us from now through Election Day. It'll be growing. It'll be at its peak. The last 60 days, the last 30 days, and certainly the last 10 days, the users will be off the charts. But so far, thanks be to God, you've always had the capacity, Rob, every year. What's your downtime, Ben? Don't say it. You might jinx it. I get it.
Well,
so far, it's been really good, right?
Very. It's been minimal. It's been minimal. We have an amazing team that jumps on things when we have issues. Don't want to jinx it, but it's been extremely, extremely minimal. And we're going to keep.
Rob, thanks a lot for coming by 1850. Come back again real soon.
Thanks for having me.
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. And if you want more, check out Your Morning Show and The Public Square. Your Morning Show is where you can hear Michael and David talking about the stories of the day every day. And you can learn more about what's really going on behind the scenes in public policy at The Public Square. You can listen to Your Morning Show and The Public Square on the iHeart mobile app and on radio stations across the country. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.